The world won't understand you. Hey, but it's okay. Said the world won't understand you. Cause I made you in my own way. Said the world won't understand you. Cause I made you different.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 80 of In a Good Way podcast. Today's special guest is Steve Nobel. He is the author of 6 nonfiction books. Is it still 6 or have you written more?
Yeah, I think 6. I think I
Okay.
lose count. Yeah.
Absolutely. 6 nonfiction books. The 2 most recent are The Spiritual Entrepreneur and Joy at Work. He was also the director of a not-for-profit spiritual organization called Alternatives, based in London for 13 years. And, he left not too long ago, or it's been a while.
2012, winter solstice, 2012.
Oh, wow. So I'm sure you picked that date for a reason. I'll ask about that. And I guess now you're doing healing and awakening work. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what I'm up to.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, I always love to start with my guests in the beginning just to get a little idea of what got them interested in the spiritual, right? Because some people, it's just, you can't talk to them about it and that's it. They're, they believe in the science and not even though to me it's all tied in, right? But so were you experiencing anything as a child already? What got you curious about spirituality?
As a child, I was very interested in everything sci-fi, everything futuristic, everything superhero. I mean, children don't have the language of spiritual. They don't go, "Hey, I'm a spiritual." Usually, I mean, some kids nowadays maybe, but when I was born late 50s, and post-war and all that. So there was a lot of comics, a lot of interest in UFOs, a lot of graphic magazines of UFO. I used to read them a lot. Alien, and then Doctor Who and Star Trek, and loved Batman and Superman and Spider-Man. I just loved them all of these things. So I was really avidly exploring, and as a teenager, I started to explore spirituality at the age of about 14. I got into yoga, macrobiotics, martial arts, and I started connecting to spiritual organizations. But they started saying to me, you're a bit young. And I was really, because they're all adults around. And imagine a 14-year-old, 15-year-old going into these organizations with all these older people. Because usually when you get older, you're more interested. But I was interested really young. And so I read lots of books, spiritual books. And then the age of 16, 17, I thought, you know what? I can't find what I'm looking for. So I gave up. I became normal. I got a normal job, got married, and did a normal thing. Normal was really not easy for me. I struggled a lot with normal. My now ex-wife realized, that I was always looking for something, and she was always worried that I might find something. And eventually I did find something in the early 90s, 1991, my father died. And that broke some spell. And I started looking again avidly, and I found what I was looking for. I found first person I met was a witch who taught me tarot. I'm like, wow, amazing. And then I got introduced to crystals and crystal healer, and then a spiritual teacher, and she introduced me to and then suddenly all these doors were open. I'm like, wow, within 6 months, I think from going from very normal life, football on TV, picking up kids from school, and suddenly 100 doors open in my mind of channeling and new age and other beings from other star systems, and it was, and manifesting. I'm like, manifesting, you manifest from the inside out. Someone's, you can manifest reality from the inside out. I was just like, how is that possible? And I started exploring and testing it and found it worked, actually. So I was like, I needed proof. This is all very nice. People say things, but does it really mean that you can create your reality? And so for the last 33 years, I've been really working with that. And at a certain point I got, what, I know it's real. I'm just going to go and explore. But for me, it had to work. It's not interesting theory. If it doesn't work, then well, maybe it will work one point, but it doesn't work for me now. So I'm not going to be interested. So I explored in the early 90s. I dived into shamanism, Wicca. I dived into metaphysics, light body, psychic surgery. I was just everything was that. And so I worked in it and I was living it in my spare time. And eventually I left the organization. I got the soul calling to leave. It wasn't easy. And then I went into a bit of a dark night of the soul. And then I started this business talking about star seeds and ascension and awakening and manifesting and all of that stuff.
Wow.
Wasn't what I intended to do, but it's almost like, and I think the real teachers on the planet are called to it. It's not something they really want to do. They may even resist it, but they have to do it. They're the ones you should be looking for, not the ones who go, I want to be famous. I want to be, but you know, they're not really the ones that you should be looking for. The ones are the ones who I don't really want to do this. But, and most shamans, for example, they are usually called, and it's not an easy calling, shamanism. And so none of them go, yay, shamanism. Whoa, whoa, whoa. They go, eek, you know, whoa. And I felt that calling very strongly first. And now it's more the stars and the earth. So it's kind of connecting both stars and earth into this kind of shamanic, magical universe that I'm really interested in and telling other people about, you know.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. I relate to so much of what you're saying, especially about the not wanting to do it. You know, when I studied, it was about like you know, in native culture, right? There's so many stories about the coyote, right? The coyote, however you pronounce, right? The coyote.
Yeah.
They call him the reluctant hero because there's stories about how he'll kind of save the day, but he doesn't want to, right? He's very, so whenever it would appear to me, my life will flip upside down and it will cause a change, right? Because it also represents change, but almost like an unwanted change, like, you didn't want to do it. But when the coyote would appear, like when I left my job of 9 years, there was a coyote outside my door, outside my house at 3 in the morning as I was leaving to work. And I had never seen one by my house ever in all the years. And there it was. And on that day, I left my job and I kept fighting it. I was like, but I was miserable, but I knew I had to leave, right? And it changed my whole life. But anyways, so when you got in this organization, it was actually an organization that was able to talk about all these spiritual things. They were that open-minded.
Yeah.
Oh,
it
okay.
was I explored several organizations in London, but one of them I was really drawn to. And then when I resigned from my last regular job, well, before then I started volunteering. And then when I resigned from my regular job, I started working for them, you know, in the office, making tea and doing basic stuff. But after 2 years, I became a director of it. It was one of synchronicity. It was crazy, really.
Wow.
I didn't feel I had any I wasn't really, you know, I'm not sure what qualifications you have to hold a spiritual organization, but I'd never held an organization before. I'd never been a director before. So it was a really sharp learning curve. And the one thing I could do was ask Spirit for help, because that's the one thing I had learned and trained to do. So I asked them, I don't know how to run this organization. Can you tell me? So in the night, I'd wake up in the morning having the idea, do this, do that, employ this person, go there, do that. And I just followed it. I just followed the impulses, the guidance. And when I took over the organization, it was struggling a little bit. It'd been doing very well, but there'd been a lot of in-house fighting. Sometimes it happens with spiritual organizations, you know, very Macbethian play, you know, people fighting egos, spiritual egos. You know, you think there are no egos, but the ego shifts and becomes a bit trickier. So there was a lot of fighting. And then I found after a big fight, I was holding the organization. And then I asked Spirit, and it guided me to help it become more profitable, more abundant, and to restore the harmony. There's a lot of fighting, created a lot of weird energies, so it kind of harmonized. But this organization was very open and in many ways, and very explorative and cutting edge. It wasn't old-fashioned. It was always looking for the edge. So that was the good thing about the organization. It's very shamanic in a way. And we put on, it was based in a church in London, a very well-known church near Buckingham Palace. You know, it was one place where big weddings would happen or dignitaries would happen and all security sometimes. But every Monday we'd hold a talk there, and we had some big names, you know, Eckhart Tolle, Deepak Chopra, all of these, Wayne Dyer, you know, all of these names came. And I got to meet them, have tea with them, which was fabulous for a while. And so it was a really cutting edge. It still is a cutting edge organization, still going, been going since 1982, I think. So, and it's a very interesting connection between a church and a spiritual organization. And the dynamic was not always easy at times. You know, the church itself, the bigger church, didn't like there was a spiritual organization connected to their church, and they tried
Wow.
their whatever they could do to push us out, but they couldn't really do it.
Mm.
So it's still going strong. And yeah, so I left because I got the soul calling to leave, and yeah, and then doing, and then I could be even more myself, because within the church, there's certain, certain things I had to be careful of saying. I couldn't tell them I trained in witchcraft for 10 years. They'd be really freaked out by that. Or
Ah.
even shamanism. I couldn't tell them about these things, or light body, or angel. They just said, you do what you want to do, and as long as there's no trouble, we'll leave you alone. And basically that worked for a long time.
So what were they open to then? If they were open already to certain areas of shamanism, right? So what was it exactly that
What
that
happened?
they didn't want you, or what were they open to? I guess you already said what they didn't want you to speak about. What were they open to then?
Well, at the beginning, the first rector is like the guy who holds the church, who's the one who's in charge. He was very open and very radical, and he was fine with everything we did. He had no problem. He left after a few years, and they got another guy in who was a scientist. He was a kind of priest scientist, and he was like, you know what, very rational. You do what you do. I'm here. But then they got the latest one was a woman, and she's very traditional, and she was the most trickiest one, actually. She was the one who was really questioning, and what's this, and yeah, she was, and in fact, she was the one eventually I felt, you know what, I need to leave because I'm too radical for her. And so the person who took over from me have a much better relationship. I feel spirit was already saying you need to get out, and the relationship was making it almost get out. And I think that can happen sometimes, that the universe sometimes make things harder to push you in a certain direction. It's not always easy. Like, here's a miracle, here's a door. If you're going in the wrong direction, they make it harder, like walking through glue. And that's what I was getting. And so in the end, you know what, I have to resign. And so that's what I did.
Wow. And so
Yeah.
I wanted to, well, first, why did you pick the winter solstice to leave then? If you had already decided you were going to leave, why on that day?
Because I heard about the Mayan calendar. I didn't really typically believe in this date, but the closer I got to it, the more I thought, you know what, this is a special day. I don't believe what everyone is saying about it, but it's a really important marker. I don't know why. I just was more intuitive because, I'd heard people's opinions. People are going, yeah, the world will transform in 2012, to people who say it's nonsense. But inside, I felt there is something really important about this day. I don't know what it is. I think there's some galactic alignment that happened on that day. I think it was a very big choice point. So I felt, if I'm going to resign, why not resign on a really powerful day? So that's what I did. We had a big ritual in the church, and I had a big party afterwards. And then I was thinking, now what do I do? And after leave, it's not like leaving the CEO of a bank where you can go to another bank. It's a CEO of an organization like that, which was very radical. And there wasn't a lot of, well, now what? So I was thinking, then what's my next step? And I went into a bit of a dark night of the soul for 6 years, from 2010 actually, which it started, and I left. And so 2016 was when I started this business. So it was a number of years, 6 years at least, of being in a difficult place of, I don't know where I'm going, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know what spirit wants. I'm feeling disconnected, and then one morning, boom, I woke up. Excuse me. A voice said, okay, now talk about starseeds and ascension. And it was like, get on with it. After 6 years of no contact, no connection, no guidance, then suddenly start this. It was very matter of fact. No, hey, welcome back. Hey, you've been away for a while. No niceties. It was just get on and do it. So
Wow.
that's what I've been doing.
No, that's beautiful. And so the fact that they told you to speak about star seeds and all that means that you're already aware of all that. So when did you become aware of star seeds, and were you visited by any beings, or did you start seeing them, or what exactly?
I had done a lot of spiritual work, and in that time, I had worked with beings which I would think were probably interdimensional guides. They weren't from this dimension. They was elsewhere,
Mhm.
And um, I'd read about star seeds. I'd read about them in the book called the Ra material. You know the Ra material?
I've heard the name, but I've never read it.
The Ra material I read in the 90s, and there's some other books, and they talked about star seeds as wanderer souls. And I'd done some connection with energies from Sirius and Pleiades. I'd done some work, but I wouldn't say I'd had a lot of experience or was really in daily connection with them. So it was a bit of a shock when I was told to teach about it, because I'm like, well, I'm not really connecting with them daily. So how can I teach? But they say, just get on with it. You'll work it out. And I did. The first couple of years, I was really kind of winging it, like finding what am I doing, trying to connect in with meditation. They started connecting with me and doing these transmissions. So on YouTube, I have nearly 180,000 people following this channel. And at the beginning, it was like, really like, what is this transmission? Like a lot of pressure on my head. And so Pleiadians, Andromedans, Syrians, Arcturians, inner earth beings, they're all starting, and also angelic, a lot of angels, different angels. I work a lot with the angels now. And higher self, of course, the higher self is the most important. If you have that connection there, it's a gatekeeper to all of these different places. So anyone who wants to channel, you really got to forge that connection with your higher self, which is a kind of 6th-dimensional part of you, 6th to 12th dimensional part of you. When you've got that, then you have a safe kind of guide in the inner worlds to help you connect. Because there are lots of beings in the inner worlds. They're not all love and light. Some of them are like false light beings. They look good and they sound, hey, we're an angel, but they're not. So it's a bit like you have to get an intuition of, okay, these beings are okay. It's a bit like having a spiritual teacher. You choose a teacher and you get a feeling, this one is okay, I trust them. This one, they sound good, but no. It's the same in the inner world. You have to have an intuition about you.
So how do you, because obviously they would really try to confuse you, right? To make you believe that they are this being of light, right? I mean, I was fooled once, and I kind of didn't want to talk about it too much anymore, but I've had people come at me like almost like, oh, I'm this, almost like this light being in the physical form right here in this 3D world. And then turns out they come like very spiritual, very that. And then there's this dark side, and you're like, once I had an experience where a being that kind of taught me to start embracing the psychic gifts more, right? And this being jumped in front of me and they said, no, don't. And I was like, what? Like, I had prayed about it. I asked, hey, is this person okay? I didn't feel any bad feelings. So I was on my way about to go meet this person. And then this being, like this spirit jumps in front of me and they're like, no.
Right.
So I was like, well, tell me something. So that after that, I went. And it ended up pretty bad. I was in the situation, this person.
Okay.
But they came off like that. They offered this healing, this and that. And so I was like, okay, fine. And then after I said like, okay, from now on, I'm open to it. If you want to speak to me, you want to whatever, just say it. Like I had blocked it before. Many times I blocked it when, because it's weird. The psychic stuff, you start hearing voices, you start this, so it's overwhelming at first, right? So I became open to it after that. So it's funny that sometimes traumatic things happen. Usually traumatic things happen that really open you up to say, okay, fine, like I'll do it.
Yeah. Guides can jump in going, no, don't go there. Don't go there. They can do that. And there are signs with a physical false light teacher. They're usually signs around issues around money and power, issues around ego and anger, issues around status and sex. These ego issues, big ones. They're big red lights. And at first they don't show you them. You have to kind of, but then you get a feeling of there's something around money or sex or power or they can't hide it forever. Then you start to get the feeling. And a lot of people, as soon as they see that, need to trust it. Okay. It's not that a teacher has to be perfect, but there are signs, and you don't ignore the signs. A lot of people get caught up in cults, and once you get caught up in a cult, hard to get out because cult behavior, thought police, love bombing. There's all that weird. Everyone has to believe what the teacher says. No one questions the teacher. There's all this kind of stuff goes on. So it's good to be aware and to question, not to be skeptical about everything, but have an open mind and really look at, if you're with a teacher or a channel, really look at the material. Is this really helping me? Am I a better person? Is my life getting better or is it getting worse? Sometimes life gets worse when you're following a teacher and you have to go, what? My life's getting worse now. So it's maybe a bit of a sign. I mean, sometimes things get worse because things are stirred up, but it shouldn't get progressively worse. It should kind of start getting better. And teachers should be genuine, loving. There shouldn't be any manipulation. And I find with spiritual teachers, if they're manipulating, there's a lot often in the crowd. You start to feel hooking into your crown.
Oh,
like
wow.
You feel someone is hooking into me. So it's good to be aware. I went to a spiritual teacher, and I was taught. She held me arm in arm, took me for a walk in Australia, actually. And as we were walking, I feel it.
Oh,
I feel
wow.
what you're doing. She's like hooking into me. She's talking and hooking. And I'm like, you know what? I ain't going to buy this one. It's awareness and experience. It's like people get experience and they, I've dated a narcissist. Some people have. And then after you date them once, you should learn, right? Not again. There are signs. I missed the signs the first time. I'm not going to miss it the second time.
I went through that, and I felt I went through that just so I could help other people, because I had never, something made me look up a narcissist after I had gone through that experience. I was like, what did I just go through? Because it left me pretty messed up for a little bit. Like, it just drained my energy. I felt like such a horrible experience. And it was just weird because I didn't understand why. Like, we didn't really have a relationship, right? It was more like I just dealt with them for like over a year and a half. We were never really in a commitment, but I gave a lot of time to this person. So somehow that time created this bond, right? And so after they kept coming into my dreams too. So that I realized there was a huge bond or connection. At one point, even they came into my dreams and they showed me this contract. And I was like, usually in the spirit world, like there's been times where here in the physical world, I won't forgive someone, but I forgive them in the spirit world, and I wake up and I feel lighter. Like, oh, wow, okay, my higher self did that for me because I couldn't do it in this reality. They allowed me to take care of it in the higher realms. And so I wake up and I'm like, wow, I don't have any bad feelings toward this person no more, nothing. So it's a beautiful thing. But with this person, I grabbed their contract, I ripped it up, I told them swear words like, F you in your contract. And I just couldn't even forgive them in the spirit world, right? So it really blew my mind. But then after, I thought, what if they were trying to show me, well, that was part of our contract here. They were meant to flip my world upside down so it would help me progress. So how do you feel about that? Like, are those spiritual contracts, do you think sometimes they could be beneficial even though it flips your world upside down? Or how do you take that?
Yeah, I mean, any agreements are very powerful for the unconscious mind. So you can agree, hey, we'll have this interaction and I'll learn, you're going to show me blah, and you'll learn blah. And then you have the interaction and the agreement's still in place. So they come back. But you can destroy an agreement after you've got enough of the interaction. I get it. Thank you. Now I destroy the agreement. It's a bit like marriage, You're married for someone for 10 years. And then, you know what? I'm going to destroy that agreement now. I'm going to divorce you and destroy it. And it's important to destroy agreements when they're done. Otherwise, they linger and it creates problems, For example, if you've had any agreements with the church, for example, people in the past used to do vows of poverty, vows of celibacy, vows of silence, vows of suffering, vows of blah. There's a load of vows. Those vows are not destroyed. They're still running.
Wow.
You might not need that vow anymore. I mean, in this lifetime, you might think, hey, what's the problem with money? Or what's the problem with my relationships? And you might have 10 vows of poverty running. You have to destroy them all. Or you may have 10 vows of celibacy. You have to destroy them multidimensionally and burn them. Because and a lot of people are carrying old vows in their system that they're just not a use anymore. And they're still interfering because there's a conflict. Well, the conflict is, well, if you promise 10 times to be poor to know God, and this time you're trying to be spiritual and have money, the unconscious mind goes, well, I don't know what to do. It creates a problem. So you have to destroy the old ones and go, you know what, they're old. Let's get rid of them. This is the new way. It's okay to be abundant and spiritual. And a lot of people still carrying the old idea that you have to be poor to be spiritual. You can't charge anything to be spiritual. Shamans used to, in tribes, there weren't money. People would give them exchange of energy, give them food, give them stuff. There was always an exchange of energy. So now it's money. It's just a different type of exchange, but you still need exchanges. You can't give a healer bananas to do healing because they have to pay their rent and their landlord is not going to accept bananas from them. So we live in the modern world, and shamans also live in the modern world. So they have to come up. If you're a tantra teacher, trained to be tantra teacher, and you've got 20 vows of celibacy, it's going to be a problem. And these conflicts create weird realities. It's like realities going up and down. The relationship's good, then the relationship's bad. And the sex is good, and the sex is bad. And then it creates a lot of weird not flowing. It's not flowing. It's not easy. It's not open. Do you know what I mean?
No, absolutely.
If it's not open, there's something going on either internally or externally that's a problem. And I always feel that, for example, last year we wanted to go on holiday. We decided we should go to Egypt. And everything about that holiday, everything was difficult. Everything. There was not one thing that was easy. So I said to my partner, you know what, it's not energetically right for us to go. So I said, let's go to Croatia. Everything was easy. The whole thing was smooth and easy, no problem. And so this is the way it should be. If things are like glue all the time, there's something either inside of you, a belief system, a contract, or some external force also not wanting you to do that. And so you have to, I think life should be a flow, and we're having to find that higher flow. So we need to clear all these old beliefs inside of us. I'm not worthy of being happy. I'm not worthy of being abundant. I'm not deserving. I'm not capable. And also old stories we've been given from our parents and ancestors. And also we have to be mindful of, in the outside world, there are energies which are not aligned with us. So we have to kind of move around them. Just don't go with them. It's like, I've seen a lot of clients who've had business partners, and after a year, it's turned into a nightmare. Wow. That partner is the problem. And when they get rid of the partner, the problem goes. So it's a constant moving of flow, learning to flow and trust and be guided, and also listen to feedback from the world. What's working, what's not working. It's a constant movement, really. I hope that's answered you. I've kind of gone on to other subjects.
No, I've followed perfectly. Like, I relate to that a lot because, well, the first thing I'll say is because even me, right? I was first, when I started experiencing everything spiritual, the thing available to me was the church, right? That's why it's funny that you speak a lot of, well, at first it struck me that it seems to be open over there. I guess you did have some kind of resistance from the church, but here in the US, like, the church is huge. And even in what is called Latin America, right? Like, Mexico, that the church is huge. So when I started experiencing spirituality, the only reference I really had was the Bible. And so even that, I was like, whoa, I experienced that. So I related to a lot of the people from the Bible, but when you went to church, they didn't believe in that. So it was like, you're reading from this book, but you don't really believe that this person saw this and this, and all this stuff. So I couldn't even talk about it there, right? Then I found my way to a Native community, and that changed my life because I was able to be open. But then I had that about how you don't really charge for spiritual things. Like how you said, it's a fair exchange. Even that, when we would go to an elder, we'll take an offering, right? When we go to ceremony, you take an offering to the one running the ceremony. So then later, even now, right now, I've begun to channel, and I did it for free because I think I wanted to test it to make sure, do I really, like, how accurate is this? Wow. Someone's mom's coming through, someone's dad's coming through, someone's mom's aunt's coming through. And I wanted to know, and sure enough, it was accurate, but I still have that embedded in me from the Native culture of you don't charge. But I understand now why, because it's draining. It takes time, it takes energy. So I understand why you charge, but I still have it programmed in me from being around the Native culture. But I see, like, I would want to charge because you are giving someone that healing. It's very healing to tell someone, hey, you're still holding on to something, and the person on the other side is trying to tell you, like, hey, I'm coming through just to give you this healing, that we're good. You don't have to hold on to this. they love you. It's weird to feel all that love from someone that's not even here. It's amazing to me, right? So all that. So that's why I was following along with what you're saying. I get it. About there was something else I wanted to say, but I kind of lost my train of thought there.
Okay.
So yeah.
Well, about the church is that most people in the church don't really understand. They're there because they've been conditioned there. They're there because they've been raised in the tradition, but they don't question it. They don't look at it. They don't really research it. Because if you research Christianity, for example, you realize that what's taught in the church is just a small part, not even the exact part of Christianity. It's not even the exact part of what was taught. For example, I spoke to a guy who studied Aramaic, the original language of Jesus. And he told me the Lord's Prayer in Aramaic. And when I heard it, I mean, it's beautiful. If you go on YouTube and put Lord's Prayer in Aramaic, it sounds beautiful. It's a really beautiful, flowing. But if you listen to the translation of the Aramaic, it's nothing like Lord's Prayer in the Bible. Nothing like what we hear in church. Completely different. Completely different. And in Aramaic, there is no word for hell.
Oh, wow.
If there is no word for hell, Jesus would never have spoke of hell. There's no word for sin in Aramaic. There's the word for sin, the closest to make a mistake that could be corrected. So you can see if the language, where did they get the language? The church is basically getting its followers in sin and hell, and you're going to be excommunicated if you don't do this. Those have all been made up. And so people don't research this. The other thing about the Bible is a number of books in the Bible have been deleted, cut out, and they're not being re-included. And any mention of reincarnation has mostly been cut out. There is still mentions of reincarnation once, I think, in the Bible, where Jesus asked his followers, "Who do people think I am?" They said, "Oh, they think you're the reincarnation of blah or Elijah or blah." So they're saying they think you're reincarnated from. So that's the only one, I think. But all of the other ones were cut out. Any book mentioning women is empowered was cut out. So, for example, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, most people haven't read. I've read it. We have a friend who's Christian, and I said to her, "I read the book of Mary Magdalene." She went, "What? What is that?" And it's very, very, you can get it on Amazon. It's very, very insightful as to the inner circle of what was going on after the crucifixion in the inner circle of the disciples and Mary Magdalene's role. It's very, very revealing. And so most people go to church, they do this horrible cannibalistic ritual of drinking blood and eating the body of Christ, which to me is a very cannibalistic. I'm sure if he comes back, he'll be horrified. I don't know where this tradition comes from, but to me, it makes no sense whatsoever. Imagine if I'm Buddhist, I'm going to eat the body of Buddha and drink his blood. It sounds a bit weird, or I'm going to eat the body of Muhammad and drink his blood. And the Islams would go, "What are you trying to do?" But in Christianity, somehow we've got this weird ritual, because I think the church has been hacked into by dark forces. And dark forces are anti-light forces, because if you look at the original message of Jesus, love, and look at the history of the church, war. How much has Christianity been involved in war over the centuries? Most wars over the last 2,000 years has connected to Christianity. Look at the current wars on the planet. Christianity in America is very much involved with the whole Zionist thing and the whole thing in the Middle East. They're very, very, Christianity in America is massive, but evangelical Christianity and kind of, I think a bit strange sometimes, the kind of Christianity in America. It's a bit disconnected when I go and feel it. I mean, I like Unity Church, and some of these churches are, are very beautiful, but a lot of the evangelical ones, especially the ones involved with war, how could you be Christian and, I believe in Jesus Christ, here's my gun and here's my flag and let's go to war? I mean, this is why I say dark forces have really hacked into Christianity. And they did it when it was taken over by the Roman Empire. It was Constantine, the Emperor Constantine. That's when the problem started then, because before then it was very different. But when the Roman Empire got hold of it, they had to start agreeing to things like the creed. We believe in one holy Catholic Church. We believe in Jesus Christ, the one and only Son of God. All of that was written to appease the Emperor Constantine. So this is all political stuff. It's not even religious. The idea that Jesus is the one and only Son of God is a political idea. It's not a religious idea, because he said, what I do, you can all do. You know, the keys of heaven are within you. He wasn't saying I'm the special one and only, but this was the political thing. So all religions have been hacked into at some extent, and they were all originally beautiful, pristine, spiritual connection, and they've all been overlaid, mistranslated, misunderstood, egos, fighting, schisms. Yeah, that's the problem with church, really. Sorry, there you are. That's the problem with the church.
No, it's fine. You're speaking my language. So, like for me, it was like when I was little, because being born in Mexico and everything, the same. It was like I was baptized Catholic when I was little, all that stuff, right? But But luckily, my dad was very free. We would have friends that would come. Oh, can we take them? Everyone wants to convert you, right? We had friends that were part of the Mormon church, and my dad would say, "Yeah, they want to go, fine." So me and my brothers would go with them, or Jehovah's Witnesses. Okay, we'll go with them. My dad was very open to it. If they want to do it, fine, ask them. And we'd go to Bible study with this and that and that. But after, like, once I started figuring out my indigenous roots, then everything that the church did to indigenous people, how could I ever, submit to a church that did that to all my ancestors? It just didn't make sense to me. So then I was but here, all of my own, people that were also Mexican, they were all trying to convert me, like, oh, this is the way. And to me, it was like, what do you, like, clearly they had no knowledge of history, right? So that is what it is. But to me, I drew my line in the sand. I'll never join these churches, because knowing what they did, it just, it didn't make sense to me. It absolutely,
it was brutal.
Yeah, exactly.
Central America was brutal. Conquistadors and the invasions was brutal, and Christianity was imposed there. And I think I read the story or I heard the story that the conquistadors gave the king of the Aztecs a Bible and said, "This is the word of God." He put it to his ear and said, "I can't hear anything." Threw it to the ground, and they killed him on the spot. That's how Christian they were. We're going to kill you. You don't listen to the Bible, we'll kill you. So that doesn't make sense, right? Somewhere something went wrong with the message of Christ, love everyone, and that beautiful message that he planted a seed of light, which is really beautiful. And I really respect his mission and what he did. I think he's an avatar, a master soul. But what the church has done and continues to do is a problem. They are not really aligned with his core message, I don't think.
Absolutely.
If he came back, he'd be, casting out the, as he did the money lenders. Out you go, out you go.
Exactly. No, I love that story. And I think that's what drew me away from the church was, when you're young and impressionable, I read it and I took it literal. So I thought, like, well, when I go to church, I don't see them following what it says in the Bible. So it doesn't really make sense. And then, I studied the Bible from beginning to end on my own. But I think by the time I was 18, I read it from beginning to end on my own. And I would meet pastors that had never read it. Wow, I actually never read the whole Bible. I would say, how are you teaching me then? If I'm studying, like, every word I didn't understand, I had a dictionary, a notepad, and I would write down every single word I didn't understand. So at least I read it like that. I know it's deeper, like you said. There's all these translations and things that we completely, different things that they change that confuses everything. But what got me more was the stories, right? I was experiencing with a lot of these, like, because even that, like the story of Jesus, don't they say that story already existed, like in Horus? The story of Noah was already in the Sumerian, but it was a different name. It wasn't Noah. It was that, these gods told him.
Older story,
Yeah. I read that when I went to college, and in the Epic of Gilgamesh, I believe that they tell them, oh, well, the other gods have decided we're gonna basically destroy everything with the flood. And the flood, it's been talked about in so many cultures. It would be hard to not believe that happened, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Oh, the flood. There's also evidence of it. There's a guy, Graham Hancock, who's a brilliant Netflix series. I forget the name of it now. He's got proof of the destruction and the great flood that happened, and probably the destruction of a civilization. It probably talks about Atlantis and the destruction of Atlantis and the great flood. And There's so much evidence around the world. There's so many flood myths. But the thing about the Bible and the shamanic indigenous cultures is every religion relies on a book and says you have to believe in this book. But every indigenous culture says you have to experience for yourself the light and the connection. They don't give you a book to read. Here's a if you go to ayahuasca or if you go to plant medicine, they go, here's a book. You have to believe in it before you do the medicine. You do the medicine and you have your experience. And then you talk about it and go, this is what happened. This was my experience. This is what healed. It's very different, the path of experience, which is spirituality is a part of experience, where religion is a part of faith and belief. But even in every religion, there are mystics who somehow have the experience. There are all these saints that have this experience, but usually they're kind of a little bit, often they're kind of pushed a little bit to the side. In Islam, they have Sufism, the mystics, and they're like, well, we don't really trust them so much. In Judaism, you have Kabbalistics, Kabbalah, they're pushed a little bit out. In Christianity, you have all these mystics that are kind of, well, we're not sure about them. Maybe make them a saint and push them to the side and not worry too much about them. But these mystics are showing the way. They're saying they're having a real revelation, and they can speak about their experience. Like the book of Revelations, the revelation of John is his revelations. People read it, and there is something about the book of Revelations about what's going on in the world today, because he had a revelation about an old world ending and a new Jerusalem coming. But that people have been waiting for it for years, but now we're at that point of an old world. Lots, the Mayan prophecy, the Toltec the prophecy, the age of Aquarius, all of this is now. And Jesus Christ, I think he even said, someone said to him, when will the new age, when will it all begin? He says, well, look for a water carrier outside the gates of the city. The water carrier is a sign of Aquarius, actually. And if you look at Jesus, the whole 2,000 years has been the sign of the fish, Pisces. That's the age of the guru, the age of the fish, the age of devotion. Now we're in a new age where we're not into the age of devotion anymore, which is why religion is suffering, because people are looking for a direct connection. They're not looking for a church or a pope. All of the churches are struggling a little bit. People are trying to find Reiki and trying to find mindfulness, and they're trying to find plant medicine. They want something else, more direct. So the church is struggling. I mean, in England, it's kind of dying. I know in America, you've got the evangelicals, but traditional religion is not really, I don't think, thriving so much. So yeah, people want direct experience, which is the age of Aquarius, which is where we're at now. This is the age of revelation, and old age is ending. You could see the plagues and the wars and all of these things are there, but we're entering also a lot of spiritual people, a lot of light, a lot of channelers, a lot of spiritual teachers at the same time of all this darkness. So it's a really weird time we're in. A lot of dark energies, war, COVID, all of that nonsense. And now all of this spiritual revelation and teachers and channels and indigenous people's coming out and going, we want to talk to the world again, whereas before they were more hidden. Now some of them are coming out and speaking. I guess you've had some. I think you've had some on your program.
No, I have. And see, that was my original, when I started the podcast, I felt like it was time for us to speak now. And so, but it's really hard. It's really hard to get indigenous people to speak about these things, right? Everything's more like in secret. That's, no, we can't talk about this stuff. So I was lucky when I got my first guest, because she's a good friend. She's a medicine woman. She was willing to talk to me. So she was the first one, but then other ones were like, no, I don't know if it's a good idea and this and that. And I was like, oh man, it was just, I don't know, it was kind of disheartening, because I feel now is the time. Hey, we could die tomorrow. I mean, in this 3D body, and that's it, right? Obviously we keep going, but it was like, what are we waiting for? If ever there was a crucial time, this is a crucial time. Like, what are we waiting for? It's time to speak up.
Well, we had lots in London, lots of shamans, Native Americans used to come, lots of people from India, Russians, all over the world would come. Maybe they knew it was a spiritual center and they were welcome, but we were finding they were coming. Every week we would have someone. We heard a lot of very beautiful people talking about their experiences but the thing about these different shamanic cultures is that they all have a very shared experience, of spirit. They're very shared, even though they live thousands of miles away before the internet and before they had any connection. They had a similar shamanic journeying, shamanic healing. They would do very similar things. And the anthropologists will say, well, how come you're doing the same thing as those guys over there? They say, well, spirit, the same spirit teaching us, you know. So, well, you know, I hope you get more shamanic people because they have got some great wisdom, actually. There was actually a group of women came out, the 13 grandmothers. These 13 grandmothers from around the world got together and started giving their wisdom. And if you Google or go on YouTube, the 13 indigenous grandmothers, you'll find them. So there are people coming out. Yeah, there are people coming out.
No, absolutely. Well, during 2012, right leading up to it, there were some elders that were traveling the world, or at least I know they were traveling from South America all the way up. I don't know if they were Inca. I think these elders were Inca, and then they started traveling, and they were trying to teach what the 2012 was about before it arrived, that we had a choice to make, that we could go in this direction or we could go in that direction. But it was there was a cosmic shift, you know, the cycle that was coming to an end. So we were gonna have the ability to choose. And so, and I saw, I mean, it's always sad to see like it falls on mostly on deaf ears. You know, during that time, the church, I would hear church sermons, and they made it a point to really mock that. Oh, they're saying that 2012, ha ha ha, we're still here and all this. And I would just be, you know, just you know, this callousness and the way very, you know, that the condescending way that they would present these things, you know. So I wanted to ask you about like the multidimensional, right? Because you speak a lot about that and you're very aware of it. So have you already experienced these multidimensional realities, or is more through studying it, or how exactly?
Yeah, so the idea about that is the soul is eternal. The soul has the soul is multidimensional. The soul is eternal. And so this is just one plane of existence. And Jesus the Christ said, I really struggled with this when he said it for a long time. In my Father's mansion, there are many rooms. And when I heard that, I thought, who cares? What does it mean? Why do people care that in the Father's mansion, wherever it is, there's many rooms? But he made a point of saying this, and people wrote it down. And now I understand what he was trying. Can you imagine Jesus saying, the universe is multidimensional? They'll be like, what? But if he says in the Father's mansion, there are many rooms, they will get, oh, yeah, okay, we understand. It's kind of a metaphor. We understand that. So just for example, this is one dimension. When we die, the body dies and the soul is liberated. It goes to another dimension. I mean, it can stay in this dimension, but usually it goes to another dimension. And that dimension has many layers to it. So even this world has different layers of this dimension, actually. And I'll tell you what I mean. Heaven and hell are states of consciousness. You can be in heaven having a blissful, amazing, loving time, and your neighbor can be in absolute hell, wanting to kill himself in the same space. So you're in he's in a different world. He can't even see the world of love. He can't even see the world of light. In the other worlds, it's the same. If you live a life where, I mean, there's no punishing God, but if you live a life where you kill, you lie, you deceive, you cheat, you hurt a lot of people intentionally, when you leave this plane of reality, you're not going to go to some wonderful, you go to a plane that reflects what you've been doing, not to punish you, but to show you this is a reflection of you. You know, in this world, there are people in hell, in wars and terrible situations, but not everyone is in that situation. And the idea that we create our own reality is that we can create a reality of bliss or a reality of absolute hell. In my life, I went through hell for many years. Depression, wanting to commit suicide, feeling there was no hope. I've come out of that. Now hey, life is good. I love my grandchildren. Let's travel the world. Let's do something meaningful. Let me help people. And of course, there's a great karma of helping a lot of people. So all the transmissions I do is hopefully aimed at helping people. What the energy that comes back is fantastic. You know, the gratitude, the love that comes back, it's just an energy that uplifts. imagine doing work where everyone loves you and appreciates what you're doing. Not everyone. Some people say, hey, Jesus will save you, but I just delete those comments. But the majority are like that. There are dimensions beyond, which are kind of higher dimensions. Angels exist in higher dimensions, but those angels can reach down to this dimension because this dimension is shifting in consciousness. So a being that vibrates higher in light, meditates, is mindful, is caring, is loving, is generous, is appreciative, their vibration increases. Angels are more able to connect. Someone who lies, who's angry, who cheats, there's no connection. So we can raise our consciousness to these higher levels and connect with beings, angels, star beings. There's tremendous beings out there. I mean, I just feel them. They're just amazing. And there are different realities where there isn't this suffering in this world. But in this world, we're in this world because it's a great learning ground. We can learn through the light and the dark, but it's not an easy place, but we can learn tremendously. But there are places of really amazing beauty and learning. The soul doesn't stop learning. Mozart, when he died, is continuing his journey, learning about music and in the higher dimensions. And if you think even like someone like Mozart, he came into the body writing symphonies at the age of 4, I think, or 5. Wow. He'd practiced somewhere else. He came in, and there's a lot of people like that. They come in and they're young, and they're just think, where did you learn? How do you know how to do this stuff? They learn in other dimensions. Reincarnation. This is not the only lifetime. This is not the only plane of existence. There are many rooms in our Father's mansion, and we can explore many of them. Some of them are beautiful. Some of them are challenging. This place is challenging.
Yeah.
But it's also beautiful. Beautiful and challenging.
Absolutely. Have you already been shown any of your reincarnations, any past lives or anything like that?
Well, I think for people who are interested in their past lives, what the first indications are, there'll be periods of history that they're very, very interested in, super interested in. I'm very drawn to Greece, ancient Greece, very drawn to ancient Egypt, Tibet, Rome to some extent, England, which I'm living in now, I feel I have no karmic connection to. I feel it's taken me a long time still to connect with the culture. Mediterranean, when I go around the Mediterranean, this is my home. England I'm like in a foreign, I'm in my mid-60s. It's still a foreign land to me.
Wow.
I go to them, I eat Mediterranean diet. My first wife was Mediterranean, second one's Mediterranean. My third is South African, but it's not quite Mediterranean. But England, no. English women, difficult. But Mediterranean, I understand the culture. So Mediterranean, a lot. Native American culture to some extent. Shamanic cultures and native to some extent. But Mediterranean, I just feel this is me. This is where I'm home.
No, absolutely. And let me ask you about this because I see it's a trend or a repeating occurrence within people that follow a spiritual path tend to be divorced or separation. Do you think the spiritual walk had anything to do with those separations of you getting divorced?
Yeah, for sure. When I met my first wife, I was 17. I wasn't following. I was trying to be normal. And then when I found the spiritual path in 1991, slowly, she couldn't tolerate it. She was dead against it. So that was the unfold. We're still friends. We're good friends. And my second long term, we were both shared a spiritual path, but at a certain point we started to divulge. She started to go that way and I went that way. We're still friends, but we're not on the same path. And my partner here, we are on the same path, and so hooray. But I think relationships end when your path does that or your vibration does that. One person is raising in vibration, the other one's going, no, I'm not interested. Or your paths, hey, I want to go that way, I want to go that way. That's what ends most relationships. And the spiritual path can shake up relationships, can shake them up because it shakes up your vibration, shakes up where you're going. So unless your partner's going with you on the same journey, then, or at least if they're open, that's great. It can still work if they're really open to you. But if they oppose you or are going in another direction, then goodbye.
Yeah, because like I said, I've noticed it.
Even if you love them.
Goodbye. Oh, yeah. And I've noticed that a lot of people that I've interviewed, they'll mention it, and then I'm like, wow, and I'm like, okay, wow, everyone keeps saying that. Like most people that are at some point they got separated, divorced, something like that, and it was around the
Happens,
time
yeah.
of an awakening or different things happening. So I've noticed those.
Yeah.
Also, back to the multi-dimensional. Have you ever experienced, because that started happening to me, for example, because a big shakeup, one of the biggest ones I had was my brother passed away in 2019,
Mm.
but he took his life. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, and so I was very shaken up by it because I already was aware. They would communicate with me, so I asked, why didn't you give me this warning? Why didn't you? But they had, right, like I had reached out to them right before. I actually had a dream about it 9 months before, but I didn't realize. I thought there was some big catastrophe with the world. I thought half the world had died, because in the dream, he was the only one there. But when I woke up, I had never cried in a dream, and my whole face was covered in tears when I woke up. My whole face, like if that, I was devastated. Like if half the world had died, and I guess that's how close I was to my brother. It was like if half my world had died, not the world, right? So even that, that was once I went to a dark place. I was thinking of taking my life. I was visited by these beings. They showed me somehow it was all in agreement. Then I started seeing alternate realities where my brother, in one, he was like, he was in the military for 20 plus years, right? So in these other realities, one was like he was a construction worker, and another one he was this, and another. So all these realities kept, and when I would wake up, I would be exhausted. Like it felt, they would leave me clues that it was a real experience. It wasn't just some dream. It was like I was jumping around these different timelines to understand that we're
Yeah.
still alive in all these realities. So it was mind blowing. So that's
Yeah.
why I asked if you had experience, because you're very knowledgeable about these all multiple realities and dimensions. So that's why I wanted to see if you had
Yeah, there are
experience.
aspects of our soul that are exploring different realities, parallel realities, a different timeline. We could have done that. We could have done this. So we can explore timelines where, and so in my life, there've been important crossroads where I could have gone left or right. So if I go left, maybe another part of me explores right and explores that path, So your brother took his life, another part of him maybe explored continuing in another, continuing his life. Reality gets very mind bending for the mind. The mind is very hard. It's almost the mind can't comprehend it.
Mm.
The heart can comprehend it. When you feel in the heart, you can go, yeah, it makes sense. But the mind's going, yeah, but how does it work? And how is this possible? And what's happened there? And because the mind is more logical and more linear, it doesn't really get all this multi-dimensional stuff. And my mind struggled a lot with it. Now I'm kind of like, you know what? I just breathe and connect, and it's more knowing that, and I allow my mind to follow my knowing now than my mind. Most people, their mind leads the way, they're thinking and analyzing and planning. And so it's dropping that and relaxing the mind. So then you can understand a lot of these things. When the mind's over busy, you can't understand. It's hard for people to understand it. So, but when you tune into your heart, you have this experience with all these realities. And there are other realities where your soul might be experiencing other lifetimes now that are lovely or difficult. And sometimes in dreams, you have a little connection sometimes with one of them. And it's more than a dream. You feel, whoa, that was something strong in that dream. This is where you might be touching another aspect of your soul, exploring another lifetime somewhere. There are aspects of our soul not in body, in some dimension where we're without a physical body. We're in a body of light. We don't have physical body. So hard for the mind to comprehend this. And the important thing is for us to be grounded in our journey, because the more we move forward in alignment with our soul, the more we embrace light, the more we activate our soul gifts, the more other parts of us are encouraged in a way. We're going ahead and we're helping everyone else go, wow, this guy, he's really aligning, he's really doing it. And so even parts of us that are struggling can be helped a little bit by our journey. I don't know if it makes sense.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I wanted to ask you as well, because like when you mentioned about having to close out all those contracts, right? Because I had, even when tarot came to me, it came to me in a dream. and everything was that I knew to wake up and Google it, and everything, the message I got in the dream with, I didn't even know how to, I used to say like tarot cards. I didn't know how to pronounce it. I didn't know nothing about tarot cards, but yet I did. My higher self did. And then I went down the rabbit hole, but because I still had those connections to the church, that I felt like, oh wait, this is evil, and I had a conflict. So
Yeah.
I've had so, like, and also like I said about the, oh, with the indigenous way of giving these things for free, but I understand the exchange of energy. So I've had so many conflicts. So do you teach about how to start closing out all these different contracts and all these?
Yeah, I do online webinars regularly, 2 a month practically. I do courses. We're doing a retreat in Lake District, a retreat in Ireland, a retreat in Glastonbury. I do Glastonbury every year. Me and my partner do Glastonbury. So we're doing about destroying. We actually go to Glastonbury Abbey and destroy in meditation contracts.
Oh,
I do it
wow.
every year, destroying religious contracts with the church. They're all old. You don't need them anymore. You need a new contract. Write a new one. If you're going to have a contract for abundance, write a new one. I now agree to have total abundance in every aspect of. Write a new one. Don't agree. In the past, it was okay to be poor because you needed the experience to understand the real connection with God without all the distractions. But now you've been through that. We don't need to go through that again, to go on a mountain or a cave. We destroy these, or a monastery. Most spiritual people these days, you won't find in monasteries, you find them in the world. You know, they're living in the world. They're embodying spirit and moving in the world. They're not denying anything. I can't touch money. I can't touch a car. I can't do this. No, they're embracing it as everything is part of the light. Nothing, do you know what I mean? It's a new test of your ability to move in the world and not be distracted by, I've got to have this newer, bigger house, or this big car, or a girlfriend with a bigger breasts, or whatever. All of this stuff, all of that stuff. It's like, yes, you can have the beautiful girlfriend, you can have a lovely car. I've got a lovely car, live in a nice house, but it's not like, it's just like nice to have and makes my job and work easier and life easier. It's not like it makes me a special person. Like some people, if they've got a bigger house, suddenly they're more important, or the more beautiful the girlfriend, the more status, all of these are ego things. So you can be in the world, have the things, but enjoy them. And if you can, share what you have. So abundance, what I have, I devote time to creating a library, a big library of free resources on YouTube. That is what I'm doing now because I can. And, a lot of people are not doing that kind of thing. I think why aren't people doing more of this, giving away these resources and helping people? I think it's the way to go. People need the help, so let's give it to them. I'm not lacking. I'm not unabundant because I'm giving all this stuff for free. I become more abundant, actually, strangely.
Absolutely.
I do teach. I have some one-to-one sessions. If you go on my website, thesoulmatrix.com, people will find everything I'm up to. Go on my YouTube, Steve Nobel, you'll find me there. Loads of meditations about star races, angels, clearing the ego, upgrading chakras, all this stuff is there.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, yeah, I mean, I don't want to keep you too long because I know you're a busy man. There was something else. I mean, I think, yeah, I don't want to keep circling back to the same thing about, but definitely it's always nice to be able to speak with someone that understands, because even not everyone in the spiritual community understands like the multi-dimensions or contracts, or everyone seems to understand like a little bit of everything. I was fascinated right away because, like you said, even though you said your brain was struggling, you were open to it. You knew something was calling you to it at a young age, and you wanted to learn more. And then that led you down the rabbit hole, I guess, of wanting to learn.
Eventually, yeah.
Yeah, and so for me, it was one of my first things was premonitions. So when I had these premonitions as a teenager, my brain wanted to understand, how can I be dreaming the future unless it already exists? So now and I don't like to always say it because I know people, the free will, and I'll ask you, I guess in closing, how you feel about that. But for example, when I would dream things, even when I tried to not make them come true, they would come true. So it would feel like almost just like a book, right? Just because the book is there and you haven't read it doesn't mean it's going to change the beginning, the middle, or the end. The book is there, you just haven't picked it up. So sometimes when I would have these premonitions, it would feel like I would go in, I guess, my real body, look at the book real quick in this, other dimensions and then come back. And like, that's what it was. Like, I had this glimpse of the book, come back, and oh, I know this is going to happen. But how can I see it unless it already exists somewhere outside of this place, right? Because time doesn't exist outside of here. So it made me very open. It started me on that path of being very open to everything. Oh, you had this. I never looked at people like skeptical. Maybe it wasn't always a good thing to look at people like, this person's a liar. I took their word for it. Maybe people were lying along the way, but I never looked at it because I had already experienced these things. I didn't look at them like, I think this person's a liar, unless my gut really felt it. So I forgot what it was that I had asked you. I was going to ask
the future and free will.
Yeah, exactly.
Premonitions. Yeah.
So the free will and also like, so going forward with the free will and this battle, because I've seen these dark entities, so it's clear that you've experienced things with them. We get psychic attacks and all these other things. So how do you feel in the direction of the future, like this ongoing war or whatever is going on?
Well, there are agreements we've made to meet someone maybe 6 months in the future, and so we know we can have a premonition because we agreed to it. And the circumstance may not be exact. We may meet them in a bar, we may meet them in a club, we may meet them in a library, but and it's not important, but we know we're going to meet them. That's one thing. The other thing is, if someone's putting all their energy into, let's say, negative energy, someone's pouring negative energy, believing everything's turning to shit, everything's terrible, they may get a little warning from the universe. Hey, this is where you're heading. Are you sure you want to head here? A little warning light somewhere. Things happen. They ignore it. They keep going. And then they keep going on the same path. And then more and more warnings come. They ignore it. At a certain point, they can't change what's going to happen. They're going to hit some kind of wall. They could change it. They have the choice to change it. Like in a relationship. Hey, this person's not who I thought they were. I ignore it. I think it's fine. Let's keep going. And then boom, you get hit by a wall. Oh my God, they're crazy, and bang, On the other side, you may put a lot of positive energy into a dream, into a goal, and you think, I want to start a business. Let's just say start a business or start a project. And then you go, I'm going to do it. I'm thinking, I'm going to visualize it. I'm going to see it. I believe it. I go and do training in it. You're putting energy into that positive part. The universe is giving you little signs. Hey, this is good. It's working. You meet positive people who reflect back. Well, yeah, this is great. I think it's a great path. At a certain point, you can't change where you're going. That business is going to happen. You're going to resign no matter what. You're going to be out of that corporate job. But you have choice up to a certain point, and then you don't have choice because you've gone too far. In global events, people make decisions, and there's decisions and there's warnings, like the global war, the Middle East and Yemen and all this, and there's things in America, and there's things that happen, and things are set up. I feel personally that October the 7th is very suspicious. What happened in Gaza? I think the whole, in Israel, Gaza is very suspicious because a lot of dark force activity happens over eclipses, and that happened before an eclipse, and then the attack back happened, I think, during an eclipse, I believe.
Wow.
It was very suspicious. 9/11 is very suspicious. These things are very suspicious. They've been set up by forces. COVID, very suspicious. The whole thing. These 9/11, COVID, and Gaza, this war in Gaza, very suspicious, the whole thing. There are ways that it could be stopped, but after a certain point, it's inevitable. Once the war happened in Gaza, that the forces in Yemen were going to attack the shipping in the British and the American. These have a knock-on effect because, and the Americans and the Israelis could have changed what they did, but they decided to do what they did, and it's going to have repercussions. The invasion of Gaza by Israeli forces and the terrible destruction is going to have repercussions for a while on them and on America and on Britain because we have conspired with it all, and so, and those, we just have to, there's nothing we can do, but let's just go through it now. You see what I mean? Before the war, there's things you could do, but once that war happened, there's all kinds of knock-on effects, which is very hard to control. So we have free will to change things, but at a certain point, the free will's gone. We just have to go through it and do the best we can until we come to the other side of it.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. How do you feel about like that the alien, because for a while I started dreaming about this alien invasion, but the same, when I would wake up, I felt very like, whoa, like that felt very real. So
Yeah.
and I was like, would that be some kind of karmic lesson that since we just can't seem to get along here, almost like the universe's way of showing us, okay, all these chances human beings had to get along on the planet, and there's still wars and this and that, and ultimately this, because even in this experience, the amount of detail these spaceships had, I've never seen that in a movie. But I was just looking at them, and there was so much detail, and the whole sky was on fire because the planes were trying to fight with these spacecrafts that were coming, and they were all over they were everywhere, right? And I felt the energy. It was just really strange. And this was all happening last year. I was having these experiences. So how do you feel about that? Do you see anything?
There are negative aliens associated with the Earth and associated with governments. American government has been connected to negative aliens for a while, since the 1950s. They've been given technology, I think, in exchange for various things. But there are also positive star races, very connected to the Earth right now. So there's this kind of both going on, negative and positive. I think the whole thing of an alien invasion is either is going to be staged or unlikely, because the secret government, the government behind all the governments doing, the cabal and all these kind of people, they have technology, they have space technologies, they have bases on the moon, they have all this stuff, and they can stage anything they want for whatever they want to do. So if something happens, it's probably not going to be real. It's something that they are staging for a reason, for some kind of control, or to change laws, or whatever they do. I mean, who knows? They're psychopathic, these people. So we don't quite know. So I don't think any alien invasion is really possible. If it is, it's going to be staged. The positive alien forces around the planet are not going to allow really a real invasion. They wouldn't allow it. So because we're in an ascension process, the light is returning. But dark forces are going to do all kinds of nonsense. They release the plagues. They're releasing war. It's all revelations. And this is what will happen until we get to the other side. We have to go through this. Unfortunately, it's all part of the journey, really. So
no, and go ahead.
Yeah, go on.
No, that makes perfect sense, because years ago I had this dream where it was like a fake planet, and it was over ours, and everyone was looking up, and then I noticed the people and cities on there, they weren't moving. It was like fake. It was a fake planet on top, but everyone was looking up. All of a sudden, these like hybrid type, almost looked like robots, came, and they were snatching, everyone screaming, and a voice told me, run that. I was going to run one way, but I ran the other way, and everyone that ran that way got caught. So it was almost like, while everyone's looking up, things are going on here. And it was clearly like a fake like planet above ours, and you could tell it was like a holographic kind of thing. So I wouldn't be surprised. That makes perfect sense. But I feel like the panic and chaos will be real. So it'll be us that cause all the chaos from trying to escape and all this.
The panic and chaos was real with the COVID lockdown, but it was all it was all artificially created. It was not in a fish market it was somewhere else. Even the CIA kind of coming out with that kind of thing. It's probably in a lab. People are kind of coming out with, now it was in a fish market. Now it was probably in a lab. In years in future, they might say, yeah, definitely was in a lab. It's very suspicious, all this stuff.
Yeah.
Very suspicious.
And I won't keep you longer. I'll just share this one thing. Right before it happened, my brother, he would come and take me places like in the spirit world, right? So right before COVID, before we even knew about it, he took me to this place that looked like it was a meeting of top government officials, right? So it almost felt like an out of body or a remote viewing or something, right? But I was supposed to pay attention to their words, and their words kept slipping up. And it was like that, like they were planning something. And also, I kept seeing 666, 666. But it was that, right? A government officials, military, all this, right? After, it took me a while to get it, but when they started calling it the pandemic, I believed it, because I was like, wow, this is kind of what I saw. They were planning stuff. But then the 666 didn't make sense till after, when I realized, wow, they were asking everyone no more than 6 people at a time. No more. Everyone had to be 6 feet apart, or at least here in the U.S., that's what they were doing.
Right.
So I was like, wow, all that. But I didn't get it till like a year later. It clicked. I was like, so was that what my brother was showing me? He took me and he was showing me this, like, pay attention. Their words are slipping up. Like, pay attention. They'll mess up. And maybe in the media, I think people were catching them when they would say certain things, or, so.
Oh, yeah.
From the
I think
beginning.
the whole thing is definitely a dark force, very dark agenda, very dark. I hope people listening to this haven't been taking the, what, toxic stuff. If they have, there's ways, it's not easy, but there are ways of neutralizing. But please don't take any more if people are listening to this. It's very, very bad for your body.
Mm.
And I'm not a doctor, but I know in myself, I would never take it.
Yeah.
I would never take it.
Yeah, no, I didn't, and I lost a lot because of it. I had, I went through, lost work, lost all that, but because I had seen it, I was shown certain things I just wouldn't. Even my spiritual community I was a part of. It was almost like I got excommunicated because.
Oh yeah.
And I was mind blown. I was like, but this came to me all from spiritual.
Yeah.
They told me don't do it.
Yeah.
And I was
your
still
body,
like,
your body can fight a virus, but your body can't fight that, what they're putting in, that rewriting the code. It can't do anything with that. It can fight a virus and get stronger, but rewriting the code and sticking all that toxic material in, it can't fight that. Heavy metals, formaldehyde, graphene oxide, it's dreadful stuff. You want to be healthy, don't put that in your body. I'm surprised how many spiritual teachers and people that are coming out and getting it and going, yeah, I've got it, yeah. And I just said, are you crazy? I was really surprised. Even people who wrote books on how your mind heals your body went out and got it. And I'm like, well, your mind heals your body if you take that toxic crap. I'm really shocking. I'm still shocked by some people, actually.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably the most openly I've talked about it because, hey, like, yeah, I mean, because at first I made a couple videos about it, and those were my first warnings by YouTube. It struck me, and I just spoke about it from I was like, this is what I saw spiritually. I didn't say, hey, I'm a doctor. This, I didn't even tell people don't take it. I just said, this is what I was shown. This is why I did what I did spiritually. And they gave me my warning. On another channel, they gave me my warning, deleted the video.
To delete this bit of your video then.
Huh?
You might have to delete this bit in your video about this.
I mean, we didn't really say the words. I'm hoping that
it might be okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hoping.
I avoided the horrible words. The ones that they will censor you on.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So no, but you said, so do you have on your channel like ways to get rid of it, or people would have to contact you to really learn?
There are meditations, and I do have some people. There are resources out there. Dr. McCullough. There are, I think Biden said the disinformation doesn't. There are doctors who've come out, spoken against it. Dr. McCullough, MERCOLA. I think he's got a lot of resources, and there are resources around. And there are things you can take to neutralize these things, but definitely, avoid putting these satanic things in your body.
Well, just this morning, and I think it was on one of the YouTube internet news about how Cheerios and they tested that they have chemicals that make you sterile. So why would people? Yeah, if Cheerios is doing it, and it's proven, they tested the Cheerios, so this isn't a conspiracy, nothing. They're literally putting things in the cereal. So who eats cereal? Little kids, this and that. So I'm sure it's in other cereals as well. They have no compassion. They have no conscience, no morals. No. So why would you think that they wouldn't do something else in something else, right? Like
organic, natural, unprocessed is the best way. Me and my partner, gluten-free, dairy-free. We don't even eat lots of grains, or I eat some, but not a lot. And you really look after your health. Look after the water, pure water. It's important because there's so many poisons around now. So it's good to, and if you want to rise spiritually, you have to, the body is the sacred temple. You have to look after it. If you're going to poison it, then your ability to meditate is going to be affected, and connect with spirit is going to be affected. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Steve, thank you so much Yeah, no, I'm very delighted. I'm glad. I mean, it was kind of like we had a little bit of miscommunication there, but
We
I'm
got
glad.
there.
Yeah, we got there. Absolutely. So I'll put all the links to contact you in the
Okay, brother,
description. I'll definitely be looking into your retreats for the
Okay.
yeah. So I'd love to go out to one of those and
Yeah. Do
rip
come.
those contracts apart.
All right, Omar. Lots of love to
Okay.
you.
Okay, it's been great. Thank you. Okay.
Cheers.
Bye-bye. Cheers.
Life may move fast, story may move slow. I met a silly man who said he'd make it snow. We look up out towards space, or even at the sky. One that gets away, but never look inside. Breathe in, breathe out. Life is amazing, but we'll figure this out. I mean, human beings, I ain't got no doubt.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, sometimes you just feeling it, you know what I'm saying? You just feeling it. And I wanna feel this way forever.